The practice of these discs, in English you can translate them as disc, katai, a disc. And there are two main kinds of katai, two main kinds of disc, of discs, and they are the color discs and the elemental discs. So the color discs are the white disc, yellow disc, and blue disc, and so on. And then there are the elemental discs. They're the earth disc, water disc, air disc, fire disc, and so on. So these discs are explained in Visuddhimagga, in a Pali commentary. They, interestingly, are not explained in the main scriptures. The Buddha does suggest that monks meditate on these practices, not in Satipatthana Sutta. This is bizarre. I memorized Satipatthana Sutta. I did not memorize Parinibbana Sutta, but I did memorize Satipatthana Sutta, and I know that there is not a single word about discs or anything similar to that. There is talk about jhanas, about deep concentration levels, but there is no talk about the object that would be used for these concentration levels. So discs are explained in the commentaries and very marginally in rare discourses of the Buddha, so not commonly, you know. So now, interestingly, the commentaries, which is a very important source of knowledge for Theravada Buddhism, for the Burmese Buddhism, the commentaries take the discs as the basis for practice. Interestingly, when the commentaries, when they explain the different temperaments, the different characters of people, and therefore what should these different people practice as meditation, they always explain these discs, they always suggest meditation on these discs as the object for each particular temperament. So they explain this temperament and there are these 6, so that's the faithful and greedy, then angry and wise, and then deluded and dreamy. So you have there these 6 temperaments, and each of them is assigned a kind of disc by the commentary. And not just a kind of disc, but also the way how the disc should look like. So, for example, the deluded temperament should watch now I may be wrong, but I think the deluded should watch a bigger disc, and the angry should watch a smaller disc. So like this, not just the color or the type of the disc, but also even, you know, the detail about the disc for that each temperament. So this is very important. Now, today in Myanmar, there is this so-called vipassana movement, the insight movement. It's a movement started mainly by Ledi Sayadaw. Ledi Sayadaw, Mahasi Sayadaw, Uba Khen, Sayateji, these are the people who started this vipassana thing in Myanmar. And this vipassana thing, unfortunately, suggests that you do not need jhanas, that you do not need deep concentration to become enlightened. And interestingly, that's true, but only partially. Some people do not need absorptions to attain enlightenment, and some do. So this is where it got wrong, because these say you, that means everybody, anybody, nobody, you know? Nobody needs these deep levels of concentration for the first level of enlightenment. Everybody can attain the enlightenment, the first level of enlightenment, without these deep concentration practices. So the concentration practices thin down from 40 objects into 2 or maximum 3. What are they? Breath, loving kindness, and sometimes qualities of the Buddha. Otherwise, no. But there are 40 objects. Now I just listed 3. There are other 37 objects which these teachers never teach, never explain. So you can imagine that for vipassana, for insight, there are 22 practices. And all of these 22 practices are taught, explained, encouraged. For concentration, there are 40, but only 3 are taught, explained, and encouraged. Sometimes meditation on death, but this is very, very rare. Meditation on death is also one of the 40. So, because of this, gradually wrong views appeared, like that concentration practice which leads directly to absorption and is not somewhat helpful for insight is not part of the path. But this is against the scriptures. The Buddha suggests these discs for enlightenment, on the way to attain enlightenment. Buddha explains that his students, monks, are those who attain the 6 psychic powers. Just one time in the scriptures, but it is there. So this is, of course, dependent on the audience. So if he has a visitor, a layperson, who will respect the Buddha and the students only if they have these psychic powers, then of course the Buddha will speak in that way. He will explain that if there is a student that the Buddha really appreciates, then that student has 6 psychic powers, which includes necessarily that the monk can fly in the sky, he can disappear, appear somewhere else, go through walls, walk over the water, remember their past lives, know what's happening anywhere in the past, future through his divine eye or divine ear, and so on. And can read the other people's minds, of course. So these are I didn't say all of the 6 psychic powers. The last of the 6 psychic powers is the full enlightenment, the ultimate freedom from all greed, hatred, ignorance. But the Buddha here seems to suggest that really it is necessary to attain the psychic powers, and they are attained only through the discs. So in different ways we can show, it is possible to show that the Buddha did encourage meditation on the discs. Why the Burmese people got it wrong like this? I think because of the vipassana movement, where they are taught by the monks that these concentration levels are not as important, that they are not directly leading to enlightenment, so why not meditate on that, what leads directly to enlightenment? And then you need to know this story about this young gentleman who came to learn meditation from Venerable Sariputta, the wisest disciple of the Buddha, and who received meditation instruction to observe the impurities in the body, which is one of the vipassana instructions. But after 12 months of intensive training, he didn't attain anything. Then the Buddha found out, and he took that disciple. The Buddha created a lotus, a red lotus, a golden lotus in the sand, and he asked the monk to concentrate on that golden lotus in the way you would concentrate on the disc of red color. Their golden and red are somewhat interchangeable. And so the monk meditated on the red color, on the red disc, or in this case it was a red golden lotus. He attained deep absorptions of jhana, and then the Buddha made that lotus to decay through his psychic powers. Then as the monk observed the lotus decaying, the monk understood impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self, and became enlightened. So you can see that really meditation on the discs, meditation on colors and elements is an integral part of the Buddha's teachings. But because of this vipassana movement, some people have misunderstood, and they are unknowingly damaging the entirety of the teachings. Not that everybody needs to follow these concentration practices in order to attain enlightenment, and it's not even that the concentration practices to the level of absorption or to the extremely deep levels of concentration make it easier. I didn't say even that. I said that some people need these concentration practices to these deep levels, and some don't. So because we don't know whether we do need it or not, then it's good for us to try out. My experience as a teacher is that my students, if they don't like a meditation method, then it will not work for them. And if they like meditation method, then it works for them. So it is all about, your own attitude. So if your attitude is that this is a meditation method that you really appreciate, that you like, that you want to practice, then you progress. If this is a meditation technique that you're not interested in, that you don't want to practice, either you will not practice it or you will have no progress, even after months and months of meditating on it for 8 hours every day. That kind of students I also have, and there's just no way how they can progress. So I have a student nun who I taught loving kindness practice, and she practiced loving kindness, every day, 8 hours, 10 hours, every day, and she got no progress. It was just total destruction, it was just total destruction of her enthusiasm, of her faith. Then I taught her all kinds of other meditation methods, and apart from breath and mindfulness and death, no other meditation practice actually worked for her. She is not able to work with loving kindness, and she is naturally very aversive person, but she is practicing, she meditates 8 hours a day. She's there in the center already altogether maybe a year or longer than year, meditating every day. The minimum is 6 hours, but usually she, as for herself, she meditates usually 8-10 hours a day. 8 hours is her basic amount of meditation a day. So indeed, today, because we do not have the Buddha, we do not have somebody to decide what's the best for us, it is, I believe, okay to try. So you try, you go to Mahasi Center, you try their vipassana practice and see whether it works for you, whether you are enthusiastic about it. You need to try it for some time to know whether you are enthusiastic. You need to give it at least a month or 3 months, to really be sure whether this works for you or not. After 3 months, if you feel that you don't get any progress, that you really don't like this practice, try something else for another 3 months.